Hello, welcome back to my kitchen. It's Rabbi Finn and you are here for a Purim special of Shemot snacks. Why? Well, because it's going to be Purim this week and also Parshat Tetzaveh, and I'll explain later on how the two perfectly combine to make the most amazing message. But as it is Purim, we have only one thing that we can make, and that is Hamantashen. Now, I love Hamantashen, but I need to make something really clear. When I say I love Hamantashen, it's not the biscuity type. In fact, I can't understand why anybody ever created the biscuit Hamantashen. It's just a dry biscuit, which is just wrong, if we're being honest. I love the Danish pastry Hamantashen. Those little triangles of Danish pastry filled with something. I actually don't have the normal Hamantashen made with made with poppy seed because I'm semi-allergic to it, whatever. So I like to have chocolate ones. We're going to be making a chocolate cherry Hamantashen. Now, we're not making a Danish pastry because that's going to take forever. But we are going to make soft Hamantashen. And actually, this recipe, if you want to, you can use as the base of an amazing, incredible rugelach recipe. So I'm going to make enough for a small batch, but you can easily double or triple this recipe. And do you know what? If you've got kids at home, this is a brilliant one for you to do. So I'm going to do it all in one bowl, and then I'm going to be lazy and I'm going to be using my Kenwood to do the kneading, but you can easily knead it with your hands as well. I'll explain what we're doing. We're going to make the dough first. We're going to let the dough rise for about 45 minutes. After that, we're going to shake the dough and then give it another 30 minutes to rise. And I'm going to cook it for 10 minutes. You heard me, 10 minutes, and then lace it with an amazing sugar syrup. So please make your Hamantashen with me. We're going to start off with 80 ml of warm water. 80 ml of warm water. This one, warming it will just help it rise quite easily. I'm just changing the units on my thing. So 80 ml of warm water in. Into that, you want to add about half a tablespoon of instant yeast. You want to use the quick action yeast, half a tablespoon of instant yeast. And we're now going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar. White sugar, brown sugar, whatever sugar you've got, as long as it's not demerara sugar, you'll be absolutely fine. So 1, 2. And at this point, I like to add a splash of vanilla. If you want really a measurement, use a teaspoon even of vanilla. Just adds a little bit of flavour to it. So we've got our water in, we've got our yeast in, we've got our sugar in, we've got our vanilla in. Now, 255 grams of flour. Again, it probably doesn't really matter what flour you're using. I'm using bread flour. I find it's the easiest one to work with and to turn very quickly into the kind of dough I'm after. So 255 grams of flour. Now, at this point, I should add a huge disclaimer. We are making a dough, which means that these measurements could be correct for one person, but completely incorrect for somebody else because flours are different, the temperature, the room, the humidity, all of that affects the dough. So when you mix it up together, you might find it's too dry, in which case add a little bit more water, probably a tablespoon at a time. And if you find it's too wet, add in flour, again, a tablespoon at a time until you get that perfect dough consistency. We are going for a kind of challah bread dough kind of feel. So we've got our flour in there, we've got our water, we've got our sugar. Let's add in half a teaspoon of salt. And the reason you do the teaspoon after the flour is because you don't want the salt to touch the yeast. So, teaspoon of salt, that little bit of savory is going to add the moorishness that you want to it. Going to add in an egg. 1 egg, cracked, nothing fancy. And then finally, 15 grams of margarine. If you want to make this milky, then use milk instead of water and use butter instead of margarine. But you know what? Seeing as Purim is running into a Shabbos and it's likely I'm going to have leftovers, I'm going to be using margarine. So I want 15 grams of margarine. And that's it. All you need to do now is knead it. So you can either stick your hands in or use a Kenwood, start it on slow and then knead it for about 5-7 minutes. And then leave it somewhere warm for 45 minutes till it's roughly doubled in size, and then I will show you what it looks like after that. So I'm going to start kneading my dough. I'm not going to show you what kneaded dough looks like, and I'll come back once I've got my dough which has risen for 45 minutes to show you the next step. Okay, so it's been half an hour or so. It's actually been probably an hour left, sorry. And this is what it looks like. Mine has doubled up. It's gone really, really quite beautiful. Stick your hand in, give it a good punch down, get all of your anger out and scrap it up, this dough, this beautiful dough, and put it onto a floured surface. What you want to do now is you're going to roll it out, and it doesn't matter how amazing it rolls and stuff like that, but let me just show you this dough. This dough feels, you know, it feels like Play-Doh. It smells very sweet, so you really want to just play with it. But let me roll it out, and whilst I'm doing that, let me just tell you a little bit about this week's portion and also Purim. So, this week's portion is Parshat Tetzaveh, and Tetzaveh very much continues the theme of last week, speaking about the Mishkan, speaking about the tabernacle and the preparations for it. And this week we focus more on the actors, the people who are going to be involved in running the show within the tabernacle, like the Kohanim, and some of the activities that they are going to be involved in. The Purim story is the famous one. We all know somebody tries to kill us, they fail, we eat. And what do we eat? Hamantashen. Hamantashen in Hebrew called Oznei Haman. They represent the ears of Haman. But I had another idea that actually they're triangular, and that the triangle came into place around the time of Napoleon, because people associated that his triangle hat was the kind of hat that rulers would have worn. Either way, I don't care how they came about, they were absolutely delicious. What is really interesting is that actually there is always a confluence between Tetzaveh and Purim. 9 times out of 10 we read Parshat Tetzaveh, this week's Torah portion, the week before Purim. This year is one of those anomalies where actually it is appearing just after Purim. But there's something that we need to notice about both of them. If you look at this week's portion, something is missing. And if you blink, you do miss the fact that it is missing because it feels like it's there. When I say it, I mean a person. Who is missing from this week's portion as I try and roll out my dough? You want to get the dough to the rough thickness of a kohen. Who is missing from this week's portion? Moshe. You see, in next week's narrative, Moshe is when he is arguing with God to try and save the Jewish people after Chet HaEgel, after the sin of the calf. Basically says, if not, then wipe me from your book, I want nothing to do with it. And because of that, God says, fine, I'm getting rid of you, but just for one portion. And that is this week's portion, Tetzaveh. But what is most fascinating is that actually, Moshe, although Moshe's name is not in this week's portion, Moshe is in the narrative throughout. In fact, from the very beginning, V'ata Tetzaveh, who is V'ata, who is you? That is Moses. And its proximity to Purim should be to prime us. But actually, even though a character, a central character, is not mentioned by name, doesn't mean that they are not there. In fact, they are probably very much part of the story. And what am I speaking about in terms of Purim? God. Hashem is not mentioned once in the Megillah. And yet, scratch beneath the surface, and it is very clear that God is the puppeteer, making sure everything works out so that the Jewish people have their salvation at the end. And according to some commentators, a bit like V'ata and you refers to Moshe, every time we have the word Hamelech on its own, the king, that doesn't mean King Ahasuerus, that means our King, Hashem. And the message of Purim, and also the message of this week's portion, is that actually things aren't always as they seem. And just because you think that God might be missing, God is never missing, God is always there, and it's our job to kind of look beyond the official narrative to see what is really going on. And that's not just with trying to find God in our world, but also to look past, the story that somebody might be telling us about why something went wrong, and to look past that and find out actually what is going on. It is our duty to always look beyond. So, that's your idea for this week's portion, and for Purim, let me get back to our Hamantashen. Our Hamantashen, I've rolled out the dough. I'm going to get a cookie cutter, a round cookie cutter, and I'm just going to cut out circles from my cookie cutter. These are going to be relatively small Hamantashen, but trying to be on a diet. So get a round piece of dough. I'm going to demonstrate with one, and then I will do the rest off camera. And what I've got here is a tray for it to go in. That's not the exciting thing. The exciting thing is in here. I've put in here some black cherry jam and some chocolate chips. I've just melted it for like 30 seconds just to get this. Look, come on, that is. Come on, I have to show you this. Look at that. That is chocolate jammy heaven. This is going to be the filling for my Hamantashen. As I said, I'm not, I'm semi-allergic to normal Hamantashen. So get your circle and just give it a bit more of a bit of a flat. And check that everybody can see. Perfect. Get a small dollop of the filling and dollop it into the middle of the dough. You could do this with kids. I think it'd be really quite fun. And what you want to do is then just fold the corners over at the top and then fold the bottom over and pinch at all three corners. Pinch really, really well. So you've got a triangle. I probably added a bit too much filling, but let me pick it up to show you. There you have it, the triangle. And you want to do with all the dough. If you've got a bigger cookie cutter than I've got, then brilliant. If not, just maybe use a knife or something. And once you've done that, leave it to rest for 30 minutes. Maybe cover it and leave it to rest for 30 minutes. And once you do that, preheat your oven to 170, 180 degrees Celsius. Whilst the Hamantashen are rising or having their 30 minutes just to relax, you want to make a sugar syrup. The sugar syrup is super simple. You're going to take half a cup of water and mix in half a cup of sugar and bring it to a boil and let it boil for about 2-3 minutes until it starts to get thicker. Then let it cool. When it cools, it should be almost like golden syrup texture. If it isn't, maybe give it another minute. And that you're going to brush over the Hamantashen once it is ready. These have been resting for half an hour, and as you can tell, some I shaped better than others. This one I obviously filled a bit too much. Tip, don't put too much filling in, however much you really want to. Now these are going to go into an oven for, at 170 degrees for 10 minutes. Yes, you heard me correctly, 10 minutes. Trust me, they will be cooked. Now, if you want them to go slightly golden brown, put an egg wash on top. To be honest, I don't particularly want them to do that because I'm going to be adding the sugar syrup once they're out, but it's your choice. If you want to do it, this will take. You're more than welcome to. So, these are going in the oven for 10 minutes at 170 degrees Celsius. Okay, so here they are, they've been in the oven for 10 minutes. These two are looking absolutely amazing, but you know, these two are looking okay. This one's completely lost its shape, so that's why I say put a little bit of filling in and then do a really tight pinch in the four corners. I can't pick it up to show you because it's so hot. But final stage now is to get your sugar syrup, which has cooled down a bit. Get a brush and then just brush the pastry all over with the sugar syrup. It's going to give it that nice sticky glaze on top. Then let them cool and enjoy over Purim. Chag Purim Sameach, happy Purim, also Shabbat Shalom. Have a great week.